All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. My name is Adam Cohn. I'm the Vice President of Broadcasting here at NCMA Boston. Thanks for joining us here for our webinar. Again, we are just moments away from our webinar, Unlocking Success Marketing Strategies that Forge Winning Collaborative Relationships in Government Contracting. I'm just here to give a friendly hello. If you need help, if you cannot view this, you are going to reach out to me, broadcasting at ncmaboston.org. I am available. I'll be here the entire time. So if there are any technical issues on the end as we are switching over here to this lovely StreamYard platform, just reach out, let me know. Broadcasting at ncmaboston.org. And again, in about 30 seconds, we're going to start our webinar.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NCMA Boston, and thank you for coming to our May event with Shenê Commodore. I'm Alice Stanzione, NCMA Boston Chapter President. Before diving into our presentation, I wanted to briefly talk about our chapter. NCMA Boston is one of the oldest and one of the largest NCMA chapters. This year, we're celebrating our 63rd anniversary. All of us are volunteers, and we are here to benefit our profession. We had a lot to offer you this year, and Don Allen will share our program year in a few minutes. First, I want to personally thank the officers team, our board of directors, and our guest speaker, Shenê Commodore, for her time today and commitment. Our chapter has monthly events around the greater Boston area, as well as webinars. Our signature event, the Boston March Workshop, was held on March 13th. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We had over 400 people. We already have next year's date confirmed, so please save the date on your calendars. Once again, it'll be on March 13th, Thursday, 2025. We're looking forward to seeing you at Bentley University for a full day of training and networking. I also wanted to let you know that we have restructured this year, and we're offering a low-cost, high-value programming for all acquisition professionals with well-known speakers around the country. We have introduced a new feature this year, Get to Know the Speaker Topic Series. It's a YouTube broadcast that is posted to our website at ncmaboston.org, as well as LinkedIn page, with our VP of Broadcasting, Adam Cohn, interviewing each speaker prior to each event. So please check it out. We hope that you take your time prior to signing up to each webinar or in-person event to listen to our speaker broadcasts and learn about each speaker and the topic, as they're very passionate about that. Please also follow us on LinkedIn page and visit ncmaboston.org to register for all upcoming events. We have them monthly. And of course, a quick reminder for everybody, remember that you get CPEs for attending our educational events, including our March workshop, which you can use to apply and renew your NCMA certification. Monthly CPEs do add up, and we hope that you consider attending all our in-person and webinar programs. And now I would like to introduce Don Allen, our VP of Programs, who will introduce our guest speaker, Shenê Commodore. Welcome, Don and Shenê.
All right, looks like I'm live. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So Don Allen, VP of Programs, and look at that, I already have the schedule up there. So it needs a little bit of updating, trimming from the top, putting some more events on the bottom. We're actually booking out pretty quickly. So you should see all the way up to September in the next month or so. But over the next few weeks, if you keep checking back, ncmaboston.org, as Alice mentioned, you're going to see quite a few new events popping up. We have several scheduled, just need to update the slides here. So today, our April event, of course, very excited. I'm going to be introducing our speaker here in just a moment. Our next event, anyone else see that flicker? Maybe it's just me. I have to adjust my antenna here. So for our next event, of course, we have improving very small business participation in the, oh, I can't read that at all. In the DIB, reducing roadblocks to success. Thank you. My eyes are getting old. I need to get the prescription uploaded here. That's going to be Don Shannon, as many of us have heard some of his talks before in the past. Fantastic. He goes by the Contract Coach. So please come back, check us out for our webinar on July 10th. Same bat time, same bat channel. As for the event today, of course, those of you new to StreamYard, thank you. Hopefully troubleshooting, everything went fine. If you'll notice on your right-hand side, there's a comments box. Please feel free to jump in there and say hello to people. Throughout the actual event today, you have the opportunity, if you will submit a question within that box, we can plug and play, put that right in front of our speaker for a little bit of interactivity throughout the event. In the last 15 minutes, we've reserved that actually for Q&A sessions. So thank you, Adam. So you can see Adam grabbed one of our comments from the comments box and has just deposited it right on the screen. So interactive, everybody can see that bubble, and our speaker will be able to see it as well, and hopefully take questions throughout the event. So, you know, very fun, interactive. It's up to you. Otherwise, you can also reserve questions direct with the speaker for the last 15 minutes of the event. So beyond that, let's get started here. I'm going to do a bio, and then we'll let you see Ms. Shenê Commodore herself. So Shenê is a known figure in the contracts management field for her expertise and dedication in formulating winning strategies for businesses navigating the complexities of government contracts. As the founder and CEO of Commodore Consulting, she has been at the forefront of guiding organizations towards success in government procurement for 35 years. From her tenure as a government buyer across diverse sectors, including healthcare, IT, engineering, and construction projects, to her role as a contractor, she possesses a comprehensive understanding of the intricate dynamics of government contracting from various industries. Drawing from this extensive background, Ms. Commodore leverages her expertise to develop procurement and leadership development courses to teach buyers and sellers. Her insights are informed by her credentials as a CPCM and fellow, reflecting her unwavering commitment to excellence and facilitating better business practices for federal government engagement. Notably, Ms. Commodore has played an instrumental role in advancing the contracts management profession. Having served on the NCMA Board of Directors, she continues to contribute significantly by lending her expertise to the NCMA National Board of Advisors and the NCMA DEI Council. Driven by her passion for advocating for small businesses, Ms. Commodore is deeply committed to empowering entrepreneurs to achieve financial freedom through innovative government contract solutions. Her dedication has earned her recognition, including being named one of the 25 influential women in business by Minority Enterprise Advocate magazine. Ms. Commodore was honored with the Security Industry Association's Government Policy Award in 2014 for her impactful work in addressing government regulation challenges that create barriers for small business and the physical security industry. So to wrap a lot of this up, obviously, Ms. Commodore is slumming it a bit when she's hanging out with me. So thank you for being here to Shenê. Just to finish up today, at Commodore Consulting, Ms. Commodore leads a team that offers a comprehensive suite of services tailored to guide organizations through the intricate landscape of government compliance and the procurement processes, from contracts management and strategic planning to proposal writing, GSA services, 8 Alpha, and specialized training. Commodore Consulting remains steadfast in its commitment to facilitating client success in the realm of government contracting. Without further ado, Ms. Commodore, the floor is yours.
Thank you to the Boston chapter for allowing me to share with you today. Thank all of you for making time to participate. I do not take it lightly that you could have been anywhere else today, but you chose to be here with me as we are going to discuss marketing. So without further ado, we're going to pull up the presentation and get right into it. If you have any questions, I do not mind that you drop them in the chat as we go along. I'll try to address them. If I miss some, then I know that our team is going to help me. So this is about unlocking success. And the ideal here is that we wanted to give you some marketing strategies, which is really, I like to call some process and tips on things to keep in mind as you are developing a strategy of, hey, how can I better engage with the stakeholders that I'm involved with so we can have a more collaborative, mutually beneficial relationship to get the job done, right? All of us want to do a good job. If you're on the government side and you're a buyer, you want to make sure you are being a good fiduciary of government funds and you're getting what you actually paid for. On the other side, as a seller, we understand that it's important for you to provide the value and build the relationships that you hope to maintain to grow your business, but also establish credibility and trust. So we're going to dive into what can you do? What is this and how should I work in this framework to develop strategies that by doing so will help build trust, establish credibility, and grow collaborative relationships. All right, so next slide. This is me. Next slide. If you want to connect with me on like LinkedIn, please do. I welcome that. I love engaging with people on LinkedIn and learning from you as well. So please definitely do that. I like to say the main goals that we have in an organization, whenever we are saying, how can I improve? What should I be doing? Normally falls within 3 buckets: people, processes, and system. Do I have the staff at the levels of knowledge and skills that I need to perform the work? What kind of processes do I have in place that make me more efficient and productive? Or are there some things that I might need to change because of technology or the market conditions? And systems, right? What kind of systems should we have in place, or tools in which we are conducting our work? And when it comes to marketing, tools are very important. There are a lot of different platforms out there that we're using now. I'm going to give some real life examples with Chat GPT and some other related things. But what platform and systems do you have? Because what's important is, once we create a marketing strategy, which is based upon messages and communication as well, is what platform do our intended targets, what access do they have, right? If we develop this great messaging and marketing strategy, but they're not receiving the message, or they have a hard time accessing our system to get the message, we're not going to be very successful. So one thing I want to stress, whatever you do, whether it's marketing strategy or, communication plan or capture management, people, processes, and systems. Who do I need to talk to? What steps do I need to take? And what systems or platforms do both of us have access to, so that you can create the optimized strategy you're going to use? Next slide. So what is a marketing strategy, right? I like to keep things simple. It is a plan that we have put in place to attract, engage, and communicate with target audiences or specific stakeholders. And then there are some steps and tools that we use to reach those goals, those specific targets that we have within the strategy. Are we looking to attract new customers? Are we looking to, if I'm on the government side, identify potential people in the marketplace that might be able to meet our needs? And then we're going to talk about how that marketing process works by giving a real live example using Chat GPT. And that's how we get into how to use AI to make it easier, so that you can develop your solution and your positioning. Next slide. All right, this is a nice, simple marketing process. As you can see, I used Alamy to identify a simple diagram. They can be pretty complex, but I wanted to make sure we all had a basic understanding as we moved into the strategy process. So determine audience perceptions, right? What does the audience know right now about what we do, or what we need if I'm the government, or what we're trying to offer? We need to understand where is the audience starting, because that's going to help guide us on what kind of message we should be creating to share with those that we are trying to attract and work with. Then we are going to create ways in which they can engage with us. Whenever we have a marketing plan, whether it is an email or a capability statement, or we're participating in matchmaking, we need to have calls to action, right? How should they follow up? What manner should they use to follow up with us, right? Are we using now? It could be a QR code. Are we looking to set up a meeting? What do we want to do to help with that engagement? And then we're going to use this information that we create from those needs to cultivate trust. The way in which we cultivate trust is we are reliable. We are providing helpful information that is valuable at the time the customer needs it, right? It's all about the messaging, the right message at the right time to the right people. And then we're going to be able to generate a return on investment. Now, on the seller side, we may say return on investment in terms of profit in dollars, but return on investment could also be return on influence, right? So if I'm a seller, how is my messaging or marketing strategies helping me influence, right? Maybe the type of buy or the procurement need or some other factor in the marketplace. If I'm on the government side and I want to generate a return on investment or a return on influence, how does the need, right, and the value and the task that the seller will be providing to the organization, how did it meet the need of my particular project? How did it meet the need of the program? And even more broadly than that, how does it align with my agency's strategic goals? Every agency is required to have a strategic plan each year that is aligned with the funds that are appropriated and awarded by Congress. So it's important for the government to be able to have some supporting documentation to justify how that happened. Next slide. I always like to give at least a brief summary of what is the government by. I like to use the GSA's diagram just to make sure we are all talking the same language, because government and industry use different terms, but also in helping set the framework of, okay, where does my product or service fall in? What bucket does it fall in? And how might I use this knowledge of that category to identify the needs or the information that I should be gathering when I'm doing my homework to create my messaging? So these are all the main categories. Information technology, we know professional services covers a wide range of things, whether it's management and marketing or technical consulting. We have human capital, insurance needs, HR needs. There could be facilities, because the government is what? The largest owner of real estate in the United States, right? Over 3 million square feet of real estate. You think there are some needs there in your organizations if you provide janitorial services or construction or some other need for a facility. There's all these different buckets that you might fall within, and you need to understand in your research, this is how the government identifies my work. This is the language in which they use to identify a need that they might have. And on the government side, when you're conducting your market research, understanding how the industry identifies the solutions that they're bringing to you and what is that related terminology, so that you can use it in your marketing messages and get a better pool of potential vendors to do your work. On the seller side, you're using that information so that you are targeting the right people with the right message, so they understand that you do indeed provide the solutions that they'll need. Next slide, please. So this is the marketing process, just real basic, of how we're going to get to identifying the strategy. We have to understand the marketplace and the needs. And I know this is something common that people hear a lot of times, but the marketplace evolves, and we know that. So market research is an ongoing requirement. It's an ongoing task. And marketing is really vital to the success of the organization, because if you don't have someone that is mirroring the message with the to-dos, then how are you going to attract the right customer? Or government, how are you going to attract vendors if you are creating messages or requirements that don't necessarily align with how the marketplace is currently functioning, especially if they don't understand the government regulations? So it's really good to understand that in every contract phase, whether it's pre-award, award, or post-award, we need to understand where is the marketplace at that current time and what kind of messaging is needed to help build upon the successes or lessons learned that we have and create better messaging. Right, so the next step is, once we understand that, and this is an ongoing document, your marketing strategy is an ongoing, ever-evolving plan, then we're designing, if I'm a seller, what is my customer-driven solution based upon what their need is? And in terms of a buyer, then what solutions out there are available to me, right, that I may be able to use at the time that I need it? And then constructing an integrated marketing plan. And what we're saying is we're taking all of those things, what rules and regulations we must operate in the government space, how the marketplace and the service providers or product providers are currently performing that work. And we're integrating that into a realistic marketing plan or messaging strategy so that we have what we want. We understand on the government side that could take the form of a request for information or some other market research tool. On the seller side, understanding that maybe what's good for you based upon where the need is and what it is, maybe you should have some white papers or some other documents that are readily available and posted on your website. And then because you are demonstrating on a routine, consistent basis what your knowledge of the marketplace is, the tools and resources that your company is providing to help solve problems in the marketplace, then that credibility and that knowledge is building a mutually beneficial trust that you might have with each other because you are working together to help each other because you realize that you have a need, buyer, and the seller understands what that is. I like to read John C. Maxwell books. He has a book about everyone communicates, but few connect. And he speaks to this in great lengths. And what he's saying is, if you really want to have a connection and you really want to build a relationship, it requires three things, right? Do you understand my problem? Can I trust you? And do you care? So establishing credibility and trust is the first step in working toward a collaborative, mutually beneficial relationship. It also requires transparency and honesty. So if you run into a situation where there are some challenges or so forth on your project, or maybe you need to make some changes in the way in which you communicate, being transparent about that. Government is all about risk management and oversight, right? How do you mitigate risk? How do you handle challenges? Because there are also always things that we don't know about. So putting these tools and information out there to help any potential customer or stakeholder understand how that works for you is very, very valuable in building collaborative relationships of trust. Next slide, please. So I briefly mentioned market research. I wanted to show, and we're going to go through these rather quickly so we can do some live demos with Chat and Gamma. GSA, how many of you are aware that GSA now has a market research as a service? And I'd love to talk about this because GSA, even if you don't buy off of a GSA schedule or you don't have a GSA schedule, you can use the GSA's market research data. They have a lot of data. You can go to buy.gsa.gov. There is data on buying guides for IT services, buying guides for facilities management, buying guides on a construction, all different types of things. Recently, GSA has said, okay, government, we know that all of the agencies put out requests for information. How can we use the data that companies are providing when they answer the RFI so that the government builds a knowledge database of the capabilities that the marketplace has that is readily available? So government, when you have a more defined need, you'll be able to review this data and come up with a strategy as well as for your procurement, as well as more defined or better defined procurement requirements. And it's a win-win for everyone, right? So with market research as a service, what GSA is doing is they're working with various agencies. They're putting out the request for information, which are a series of questions. They're capturing the information and summarizing it for the agency so that they have a better idea of what's happening in the marketplace, what vendors are out there that might be able to do the work. Are they small businesses? Is this something that may be more fitting for new and emerging technologies? And how can I use this data? The benefit to you, if you are a seller, is if you respond to an RFI, you can contact GSA and say, hey, I responded to this RFI. I'm trying to get a better understanding of what's going on. Do you have a point of contact I may be able to follow up with? And guess what? You'll be able to get that related point of contact. And this is where your marketing strategy and communication begin to take off more into the next phase, because you should have a specific message developed in which you are going to follow up with that particular contact regarding this. All right, next slide. Excuse me. So even as you see here, when GSA is defining market research as a service, they're doing the same thing that we do on the industry side. Who is our customer, right? That's really important. What kind of projects have they done, or what might we be able to do? How can we collaborate, right? And then can we make an award? Next slide. These are some examples, just so you can see real quickly the survey questions. They're asking about technical capabilities. They're asking if the company, if you as an organization has done work before. And what I like about these survey questions is, guess what? Can you use these questions to develop some marketing material or marketing strategy? If you didn't know what to write that a potential customer or vendor might be engaged with, might you use these questions and come up with some ways in which to create messaging or white papers or some other kind of helpful resource that they might be able to use? Because these questions give you an idea on what information are they looking for. So that's another reason I like to look at the survey questions, even if I may not answer them. They're still very informative. And when it comes to marketing, we are always in the fact-finding investigation stage. Right? Any of you go to those escape rooms, or you like the mysteries? This is the government's fun way of a mystery, right? You know, what information do I need to provide so that they know that I'm capable and qualified and I'm ready to engage with them and do the work? Next slide, please. These are some more sample questions, so we can just go on to the next slide. And I just wanted to show you with this slide who is actively participating in the market research as a service right now. The DoD, Department of Defense. Then we have Veteran Affairs, Energy, Health and Human Services, and Transportation. What I want you to also see from this chart is, if you are new to the federal government space, government contract buying is divided into two categories. You have the Department of Defense buyers and you have the civilian agency buyers. Our Department of Defense main mission to enable the warfighter. So if I am a seller, what kind of needs might they have around that? What kind of messaging could I create that also carries a sense of urgency that I understand enabling the warfighter has, right? Protecting national security. What kind of messaging can I create to demonstrate and show that sense of urgency with that mission? On the civilian agency sides, you know, just looking at this, you can see it deals with the public health and what's important, not just to public health, but transportation and our infrastructure. One key lesson we learned with COVID is, hey, what good does it have to all these products and services if they can't get to where they need to get to? Right? And there's all kind of messaging that we could create from that and some strategies. Next slide, please. All right, so how do we gather this information and work on a strategy? Right? Stay in the know. I've spoken about that, so we won't, this is for your reference, right? What NAICS codes do your services, remember the category chart, normally fall under? How is the marketplace changing and evolving? What is the competition doing, right? If I'm a seller, if I'm on the government side and you have an need identified, then, you know, looking for alternative solutions when you're conducting your market research. You know, watch out for confirmation bias when you are putting together these marketing strategies, right? When you're doing your research and identifying information, it is really about learning what you don't know and getting a better understanding. So you're not seeking to confirm what you already know. You really are seeking to gain better insight, which is going to give you a creative advantage when you're crafting your messaging. Next slide. These are some of the tools, and we're getting ready to go into some examples. I mentioned buy.gsa.gov. You can access this if you're a seller. Even if you don't have a schedule, there's a vendor side, which you're allowed to see some information on schedule holders, buyer guides. What are they telling buyers in terms of how to prepare and buy a particular item or service? You can also see some pricing data, which is good in establishing pricing points we may have for our products and services. If you're the government, you work for the government, there's definitely a lot more information you have access to with buy.gsa.gov, because there is an IGCE as well as some pricing history that you might be able to use when you are putting these things together. Next slide. So what are the methods? I've spoken about, conducting an assessment. And when I say assessment, making sure you understand what the problem is, right? You may see the requirement, but why does this opportunity exist, right? Why does this problem, why is there a need for it right now as compared to what the need may have been 1 or 2 years ago? And looking at that entire period of performance that they may have, how might this opportunity or problem shift throughout the time frame in which the award may be made for the contract, right? So identifying information for that. So 1, why does this problem exist? What is the opportunity? If I'm on the government side, what am I trying to find out in the marketplace? The next thing, who is my target, right? What messaging, what customer or stakeholder do I need to get messaging to? At this point of the contract life cycle, if you're in the pre-award phase, should you be reaching out to a small business representative? Should you be trying to reach out to the program manager and better understanding their needs and what kind of information or communication they may have? And then after that, working to see, okay, so what solution can I offer? What alternatives and additional features and benefits might I be able to offer them? And how do I communicate with them? Because it's still important that even if you have a solution, you can operate within the government regulatory space. And it's important to understand that, right? And finally, we hope as you're crafting your message, you're looking at how might I be able to improve? If you do have a competitive advantage or value proposition that you have that works, looking at ways in which you can improve your messaging so that you are attracting and engaging more decision makers or people in influence that are going to affect your decision. If you're on the buyer side, what kind of information could you improve upon in sharing so that you'll be attracting and engaging a wider pool of qualified companies that might want to do work with the federal government? We know that the more suppliers and interested vendors we have, adequate competition leads to better pricing, right? All right, next slide. So this is how we're going to do it. If I'm a seller, I'm going to create a customer profile. I'm conducting market research. I'm identifying what are the needs, right? How are they buying these products? What government vehicles are they using to do that? And then if there's a specific location that the work must be performed, I'm reviewing and making note of that as well. On the next slide, we're looking at it from a buyer perspective. Next slide, please. Okay. All right. So I don't see that slide. So let me go back. Just go back a couple of slides. One more slide forward. Okay. So if I'm a buyer and I'm conducting market research so that I can prepare my marketing message and strategy, what you're looking for is you're going to do a market research of your need. What companies are out there that buy or sell what you're looking for? What are the processes that they use to complete the work? How long does it normally take them to complete such tasks? Are there any pre-qualifiers that they need or additional information that they might need from you before they can begin work? right? And are there any unique commercial standards or practices that they must follow to complete the task? Because this may be in addition to what you may require on the government side. All right, next slide, please. And these are some tips. So now I am going to share my screen because I want to give a real live example of, with ChatGPT, how might we find out some of this information. So I'm going to share the screen with ChatGPT. Can you see my screen? Because I no longer see you. Adam, I need you to say yes or no because I can't see you anymore. All right. So when we use ChatGPT, it's a nice, efficient way to conduct
I got you,
marketing.
Shenê. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I got you. I've got that on the screen. Like I
Okay.
said, just give me the cues. I'll switch you back over to that.
Okay. So we see all sorts of different things. So if I'm a seller, I've already created a summary of NAICS codes because that's important, right? What government agencies spend the most on these services, right? And we normally start out with, what does the government buy? So in this example, I created a checklist, right? Because this is how we get started. Even if you're on the government side, this is something that you might be able to use. So since we're talking about marketing, I'm using marketing, right? So I created a question with ChatGPT, and I asked them to create a checklist. And when you're using ChatGPT, you have to assign it a role and a task and a desired outcome. And that's what I've done here to get these results. So when you click on the button, this top right-hand button, you can share it. So my role is, I'm a marketing expert who wants to start a business as $1 million, because we all want to be millionaires, right? As $1 million government contracting. How do I identify my NAICS code to find what agencies buy for my marketing services? So ChatGPT says, hey, this is how you need to, this is how your marketing services are identified. Here's some additional research that you have available to you, right? And we all know, yes, federal procurement data systems, US spending, and it's saying target agencies, network your market, right? Network and market your services. And what is this thing that we always see down here at the bottom? Understand agency needs, right? Keep an eye on forecasts and procurements. That's going to help us understand. Then I say, hey, create a checklist from this, right? So it's giving us a checklist of the information as to what we're going to build upon, right? It's further also defining some additional NAICS codes. What I like about it is I can use this information to also help establish some keywords that I want to have in my marketing material, because it's describing to me in plain terms what these NAICS codes mean. So for 541611, provide advice and assistance on planning, management, information systems, right? I can use those keywords when I'm writing and creating my literature to develop some marketing material for that. Then I say, well, who spends the most on this, right? So it's giving me a list of government agencies that spend the most on these marketing services and what they're spending it on. So when I look at Department of Defense, I don't just see that, hey, they're buying marketing services. I see that they're buying marketing services for recruitment campaigns, public service announcements, and public relations. That gives me an idea of the type of marketing campaign or marketing information strategy that I'm going to have. Because if I didn't know this and I just created a marketing campaign and said, we can help you provide emergency messages to enable the war fighter during war or political unrest. Well, that might not speak. Does that sound like that speaks directly to the need that they spend the most money on, which is recruitment? So these key things let me know when I'm creating marketing strategies. In addition to my capability statement, if I'm a seller, I need to talk about the things that are most important to them, right? And then we can continue to go on and on. just when you're using ChatGPT, just remember, you can be anybody that you want. Maybe you don't have over 10 years of marketing experience. It doesn't matter. ChatGPT means generative, pre-trained, transformed, which means they're taking all the information available to them with these wide variety of skill sets, and they're making this easy. They're giving the output to you, excuse me. So if you want to be an expert in the government space and create a procurement requirement, it allows you to do that using different methods. So I'm going to switch back over so that I can do something from a buyer perspective. So buyer, if you're the government side and you want to, I am a government buyer with over 20 years of experience. I want to, let's say you want to create, I want to create a RFI to purchase IT services for cyber security. And then you could say, help me create marketing, help me create an RFI agenda to attract potential vendors with these skills. And then we will see what it comes up with because memory updated. And okay, right? So it's telling us to attract vendors with cybersecurity skills, outline your needs and expectations. And it's giving you the kind of information that you might want to have in that, right? It says background, context about your current IT infrastructure, cybersecurity measures. So we know that when we're preparing a buyer for an RFI, we would need to make sure if we want to engage and attract the qualified vendors for that, this is the kind of information that we may want to put out in a public place, right? AKA also market, to help attract more vendors to do that. So we can use this tool. You just never put any confidential information in the system. All right, so I am going to go back to you, Adam, so that we can continue. All right, next slide, please. And that's how we're going to build our SWOTs, our competitive analysis. So we got all this cool information we can use, and it's going to help us create a value proposition, right? Fascinating, because a lot of times we don't understand, well, how can I bring value? Well, when we understand what's important to the messaging we're targeting, we're better able to do that. So ChatGPT gives us the tool to do that because it's putting all of that data in one place, and you can ask it whatever you want. So I'm going to wrap up quickly. Next slide, and see if we can get some questions. Maybe you want to try some things and have me try some things in chat. Next slide, because we know that you need to plan, be specific, measurable, realistic, and timely with your approach. These are the market profiles to think about, right? How is it being solved in the marketplace? What features and benefits are currently available? Are the vendors buyer? Are they familiar with the government market, right? Next slide. Identify your message. I hope you can see this. So the next thing that I can do is there are different copyright styles for marketing. This slide is to give you, thank you, Adam, you're just so wonderful. This slide is to give you an example of copywriting styles you might have, right? Are you trying to maybe you want to use the ADA approach, right? This is focused on creating message to capture the reader's attention, build interest in your product or services so that they have a desire to want to engage with you more and learn more about you, right? Why would a government buyer want to set up a capability briefing and they don't know anything about you? So create some marketing information that you have readily available in addition to your capability statement or what you might share on your website that's going to create that attention and interest, right? From the buyer side, right? Maybe your messaging is going to focus on problem, agitation, and solution, right? Help the reader understand what your problem is and your sense of urgency so that they can provide a better solution for you, or share additional information with you in terms of what they may need to better understand the problem and the complexity that you may have of the problem. There's also messaging that's focused on features, advantages, and benefits, right? So highlighting on the features, explaining the advantages. When is an organization going to be able to recognize value if they work with you? What other benefits is the customer or the agency going to have working with you, right? And before and after, that before and after picture. Hey, thank you for the time to have, if I'm a seller, thank you for allowing us to have a capability briefing. Let me make sure I understand what you need. This is where you are now, and this is how we're going to get you to that solution, right? And then the 4 E's that we all hear so much about: engage, excite, empower. Whenever you are building a collaborative relationship, through all that you do, we all want to feel that way, right? How you have to like the people that you work with, right? So we establish trust and credibility, but how do we keep that? How do we keep them informed or engaged and educated so that they feel more empowered to do their work? And this is important for both buyers and sellers. So identify your message. There's a long list, but these are just some key examples that I think work best in the environment that we're discussing today. Next slide. Thank you. Identify your message. So, okay, I've chosen my copyright style, but how am I going to write it? Do I want to make this a professional setting and business writing? Is it more expository where I am just informing or better explaining a subject, right? Or I'm explaining the logical sequence and steps. We know cybersecurity is very complex. That's a great way to use that. What about persuasive writing, right? Convince the reader to adopt a different viewpoint. How are you going to do that? And then technical writing, right? All of us aren't IT or technical experts. How can we write something in simple, plain language that someone else is going to understand? So these are the strategies in which we can do that. All right. I am ready for the next slide, Adam. Thank you so much. Okay. And then I'll share a different message. All right. So get it done. One way to get it done easier, if you're scared and you just want to creep into it, hey, use ChatGPT. Use the market research buyer that you've gathered about the vendors or for other historical contract files. As a seller, use the market research that you've gathered. You can both use market research as a service. You can conduct your own market research still using Google, and identify what needs to be done. You can use AI tools for these things. I just wanted to make sure to have this information and give an example. Next slide. Right? If I'm a buyer, what can I use it for? Right? Maybe I want to figure out how to carefully word my debriefing. We know as a buyer, as a government, there's only so many things we're allowed to share in a debriefing. How might I be able to provide more helpful information? Because ChatGPT, the other reason I like it, it helps me become a better writer. When we're in this world of government and it's so complex with these regulations, we kind of tend to talk a little robotic. So I can tell ChatGPT, hey, explain it to me, right? Explain it to me like I'm in high school. How can I make this easier to understand, right? You can relate back to the myth busting memos if you're a buyer. What does the government say about communication and collaboration, right? I'm going to go, Adam, I'm going to share this screen. Oh, yeah, I don't know if it's like, I'm going to share this screen really quick. I'm going to go back to ChatGPT so that I can show you something. All right, so now I'm going to say I am a government, I need to spell right first, right? Government contract expert with over 20 years of experience. Help me create an email campaign with 5 email series explaining cyber security using, let me spell again, using the ADA method. And let's watch it go to work. So we're telling it what is our role, what is the task, right? And we're identifying the copyright that we want to have. Email 1 is about attention. Cyber threats are evolving. Are you protected? That would get my attention, right? It's even given us the letter and the email to go along with that. Email 2, we're creating interest. It's telling us what to do with that as well. And it will continue to go through this process using those different strategies. And then, of course, we don't copy and paste. We rewrite and make this true to our own. All right. So back to the presentation, because next slide, we're done. If you have any questions, these are the key takeaways that I have for you. One more thing. Adam, do I have a little bit of time to show them one other thing?
Yes, we
I don't
have
see
more
any
than a half
questions.
hour left. You are good to go.
Wonderful. So we have time to play. Awesome. So let me go back to, I will go back to this where ChatGPT left off on ADA, just so you can see what it looks like. Right. So this series gently guides the reader from awareness to taking what? Concrete action. And if I'm a seller, I want them to do something. I want them to trust me. I want them to, hey, maybe there's a vendor industry day or there's an upcoming project and they were looking for vendors. I want them to think, hey, I need to make them aware of this, right? So you see that the email sequence, going back to what we've done, we're at interest. How does cyber attacks impact your business directly? And it's giving you some information there. Desire, right? This is what you should do, reader. Protect your business. This is our email message, and we're going to build some marketing communications around that. Desire, right? Tailor cybersecurity solutions. Action, take action now. What might you want them to do? Are you going to redirect them to a white paper? Right? Are you letting them know that the NCMA World Congress is coming up and they should visit you at your booth? What are you doing at that particular moment? Right? If I was to say my next thing I would say, I like to say, thanks, chat. Just got to be like, now can you explain this to me? This is going to be fun. Like a fifth grader. Because ChatGPT will do what you tell it to do, right? And let's see what let's simplify that. And we don't have to make it as simple as a fifth grader, but just to give you an idea for kicks and giggles. And so imagine you're sending a series of letters to a friend, convincing them how to ride a bike. Here's how you'd use the ADA method. Letter 1, you want to make sure to grab attention, right? Letter 2 is going to give us another, point. So there's make them interested. So do you see how we can build upon this, even if we're not experts in AI or anything like that? It's a fascinating thing. You just don't want to put confidential information in here, but it does help give you some ideas. Now I want to show you the next thing that I'm going to show you is the Gamma tool. So anyone in here familiar with Gamma? No. So Gamma, and I hope you can see the screen. This is an AI tool where you can You can create text, you can create presentations. A few days ago, I did a demonstration on critical thinking, so I did that. So let's start from where we are, marketing messaging, right? So I said, you can create a website, you can create a document, which could be a checklist, a tools, frequently asked questions. What I like to remind vendors, buyers, and sellers are, maybe you create a should ask questions, right? What should you know if you're interested in meeting the needs of this requirement? And seller, you could create a SAQ on what should you know if you have this problem. What should you understand and think about as you're identifying ways in which to solve it? So you can use it to create checklists like this. So for example, let's create a presentation, and notice you can pick the number of cards, right? We're going to keep it simple here. I'll leave it at, no, let's make it the lucky number 7. So we want 7 slides. We're going to create a presentation, and let's say we're going to create a presentation on understanding cybersecurity challenges, right? And we're going to have it simply generate an outline. Look at the outline that it's created. If I'm a buyer, is this important to you? Challenges, evolving threats. How can you protect it, right? Cybersecurity awareness. There's the other thing we all love, regulatory compliance and data privacy. That's important. So buyer, if I was a buyer or a seller, government or industry, that's good information to know that collaboratively we could have a discussion on to build upon in our relationship that we're growing to meet this government need. And now I'm going to say continue. And you get to pick out a theme. I like green. Well, my grandson does. So I'm going to pick out a theme, right? And I'm going to say generate. And watch what happens. Ta-da! We have a presentation. We have a presentation based upon the outline that we asked it to create. So if there's some information that we want covered, right? Industry Day, if we want to discuss and we want them to share with us, excuse me, that wasn't depicted on this presentation, we can identify that and make those changes here. Seller or vendor. These are some things, if I were you, I'd make sure that I was able to discuss or create some marketing strategy and information sharing around. Everyone is concerned about risk, right? Or incidents response and continuous improvement. We all know there are regulatory compliance things that we need to discuss. So as the government, as industry, what does that look like? What does the government require? In industry, what kind of systems, people, processes, and systems do you have in place to ensure compliance with regulatory things, such as CMMC or other factors? I know I'm working backwards, but I just want you to see what's happened. The importance of cybersecurity awareness. So it's flushed everything out for you. So, hey, if you've got a presentation at the last minute, I think you're ready. So, Gamma is one of the tools that you can use to do that. So I hope this was eye-opening and helped everyone. And we are now open for questions if you have any, because I don't see it in the chat yet. Are there any questions or comments so far?
Hello, I have a question.
Okay.
And this is the fun part I get to have as the technical guy behind this. But as all these new AI tools, and I've got my own concerns about AI, but when we talk about all these different tools, you talk about ChatGPT and you giving it the proper inputs to populate something. What's the fact-finding check once it goes ahead, whether it's ChatGPT, Gamma, like you just showed, what's the fact-finding check that we still have to do as contract administrators to verify what the AI is popping out?
Very good question. So you always want to fact check everything. There is another AI tool called Perplexity. So you can use Perplexity to do research, and Perplexity will actually give you the resources and the names in which the information came from. The other thing that you can do that I like to say, and I'm going to put the acronym here, is don't forget about this method. I like to call it something else so it doesn't sound crazy, right? I'm going to say CROP, right? Do you have a credible source, right? What is the problem? If you're using information, what problem was that information created for? Does it match the problem and scale of complexity of what you're using, right? Next, is it reliable information? Is this from a reliable source, right? Next, the A, authority. Who wrote the information? Are they someone of authority with the skills, experience, and knowledge, that you would need or to verify that they can actually have the knowledge to do this work, right? Where was it published? Who is the author? Are they considered reputable and trustworthy? The next A is for accuracy. Is the information supported by evidence? Does it make sense, right? Are the claims cited correctly? And then last, purpose, similar to what I just recently spoke about. What is the motive behind the publishing? Is it non-biased? Making sure that it's not political or geared toward a specific source. And I really want to stress the C, currency, making sure that the data is current, because information does change. So whenever I'm looking at data, I make sure to go through those steps. I also use Perplexity to help with that, but I still do my own fact finding.
Cool. Well, Don's got a question, so I'm going to pop off stage and send it over to him.
All right. You're on mute, or something's wrong with my computer. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Perfect. All right. So second try, two-part question for you. First, I'd love to hear a success story, real world success story.
Real world success story from what perspective?
So anything current would be fantastic. I'd love to hear, what you've been a part of lately that you would consider a huge success, and get some details on that. The second part would be, I think that I love the acronym. I fear saying
one more acronym, but we'll call it CROP. We won't call it that.
I like that. Yeah, it's definitely. I'm a bit reticent about saying it out. So I guess pronunciation is important. But along those lines, I'd love to hear a real world example of challenges you've seen, issues you've seen with regards to crop.
Oh, yeah. So, there's so much information out there and that we need to verify and go through. One area that I'm always looking at is in terms of cybersecurity and the credibility, the knowledge and the expertise on what kind of threats there are. And even when it deals with the use of AI, right? For the government, it's important that we can't have on the government, putting my government hat back on, everything back out in the public. So how do we work through that? So one thing is, in addition to Perplexity, understanding that the government has to actually create their own technology system to house the information that they're going to use to build and pre-train, remember, GPT, and transform the data that it has available to it. And it's going to dump all of that credible information into that tool and then build upon that. So one thing that I've been doing, because AI is so new and we have all these new challenges with the cybersecurity, is doing some research on the type of technology and platforms available and what they can and cannot do and what they are able to protect in terms of data. We know with data protection, we're looking at it in three ways. How is my data protected at rest when it's just maybe sitting on my computer? How is my data protected in use when I'm actually using it and working with it? And how is my data protected during transmission, whether I'm sending an email, going from computer to computer or platform to platform? So I have used the method to identify whenever someone says they are an expert in building these technology systems or technology modernization. I've used that method to validate, their authority, their experience, how current it is, because technology changes really fast, to make sure that I have reputable sources in that space.
I like that.
Yes. Ali, to answer your question, yes, Gamma is a open source. Let me say this. There is a way to search in chat that you keep it private, right? So in your settings, there is a way that you would hit the tab and you would say that you wanted it to remain private. And so that it's not going out in the pool, so to speak, right? And then there also in the settings, you would be able to create the tone that you have for that. If we have time, I can show you really quickly before I answer your next question.
Absolutely. We do have time.
Okay, so let me show you
another showcase.
Again. Go back to tool. Okay, so I'm in chat. I'm down to my registration. I can say my GPTs. I can say customize chat GPT. So for customized cat GPT, I'm giving it information about myself so that when it creates these marketing messages or strategies, it's using my style so that it doesn't sound robotic and fake. So you customize the instructions, first of all, so that it can write in your tone and style and it's easier to edit. There's also a button here where you can say enable for new chats. You can turn that on and off, right? The next thing is when we say customize chat GPT, that was for that one. Oh yeah, I just did that. We can say settings, right? So there's general, achieve chats, and manage, right? We can manage how we archive them or what we're going to do. There's a data controls button there, right? So there's data controls, share links with everyone, improve the model for everyone. I'm going to turn it off and done. And then that way, when I'm playing around with it, trying to figure things out, it's not building upon my data to do that. So there is a way in which to turn that off. I still say be careful because this is new. So although I may turn things off, I'm very mindful of not including confidential information, but just being very broad in how I am describing a thing to be able to get information from that. You're welcome, Allie. Your next question regarding what have I been doing? Some fun, cool things, thanks to government, surprise. So I just came back from Abu Dhabi for 2 weeks. I have a subcontract where I provide government contract training to the people working at the embassies and different places for the Department of State. So I'm still kind of on that time zone. But I'm here. It was exciting. And with any experience, I love learning from other people. So it was fascinating to watch the diversity in thought in which they have to exercise procurement and put bids out because of the nature of their work, right? We always have to think of what environment am I working with? The Department of State has some very unique acquisition factors that they have to be mindful of. For one, it's a lot of overseas work. It's a lot of very important people, right? They're handling a lot of different things, whether it's construction or services or healthcare. So there's some very unique things there. So that's what I just came back from working on. Ted, I see a question. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing government contracting, federal, state, and local? The biggest challenge I see is, and I don't think it's changed much, is a couple of things, is being able to keep a true pulse on what is happening in the marketplace. What we've seen in the last few years is an exit of a lot of small businesses that are willing to work with the government marketplace. One of the unique aspects of government business is to develop and grow the industrial base, right? It's challenging to do that if the industrial base doesn't want to do business with the federal government. So one of the challenges, biggest ones that I see, federal, state, and local, is how can the government attract, engage, and persuade and keep businesses willing to work with the government so that the agencies are able to benefit from what's new and best out there in the marketplace, which adds to the challenge from a seller side, which is understanding all these terminologies and lingo. So I think the challenge will be, one of them will be owed in terms of making sure that we're always conducting market research. And now there's so much data out there, identifying the credible sources in which to use that data from to develop better solutions. And then, making sure that we continue to bring qualified interested vendors into the marketplace to help solve the problems from a creative standpoint, as well as maintain adequate competition and fair and reasonable pricing.
All right, folks, any last minute questions? We still have about 15 minutes left in the webinar.
Thank you, Ted. You're welcome.
And as we let the last bit of questions trickle in here, Shenê, is there anything else you wanted to share with us as we wait on last minute questions? If not, we'll probably get you on out of here early. And since you're still running on Abu Dhabi time, probably time for bed.
Yeah. I mean, okay, that's no problem. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I see questions about, can you get the presentation? I will share that with you, Adam. I'll share an updated version with, a few more pictures and links based upon the questions that you can share with the group. And to all of you, I say, believe that you are capable. Just because a lot of these things are new and you haven't worked with them as much, being uncomfortable does not mean being incapable. So give yourself the time to figure things out and to try new things and to learn new things. And, sometimes the best strategy is to admit you don't know and allow yourself these different tools and platforms, allow yourself how to figure it out.
Great. Well, let's bring Don back in here as we say our final thoughts here for.
I love the idea of the upgraded slide deck, by the way,
Right.
Shenê, based upon our interactions today. That is fantastic. I'm happy, but a little worried because I think you might have just started a trend. Might set a precedent going forward, right? Be a hard act to follow, but it's a great idea, guys. For the slide deck, it does sometimes take a few days to get everything loaded online and everything, so please bear with us. But per one of the questions we received today, we will endeavor as part of our team to send out an email once our links are set up and posted for people to follow us, both YouTube and ncmaboston.org.
I'll also have the entire webinar posted on our YouTube channel as well. And you can check out past events, all of our Meet the Speaker series, Shenê Meet the Speaker interview, which if you haven't watched it and you enjoyed the presentation, you can learn a little bit more about Shenê. And it was just a fantastic interview. Shenê, you and I had the greatest interview that no one ever heard.
Yes.
We had some technical difficulties with that one, so we recorded the second one. But there are so many new fun and initiatives here that we're doing at NCMA Boston. Shenê is just a part of a long line of amazing speakers. We're going to continue to have. Don's already outlined. We have more we're prepping for the next program here. Tons of fun stuff. Don, any last minute thoughts before we go ahead and end the webinar?
That's it. Shenê, fantastic job. Thank you for being here with us today. Can't thank you enough for slumming it with us. Your accolades are well-deserved and a wonderful presentation. I look forward to getting a copy myself. Thank you, everybody. As Ali's pointing out, remember you get CPEs for this webinar. So now you can self-certify with NCMA National that you attended. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the questions, all the interactivity today. Shenê, hopefully we can get you out again in the future.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time and your questions. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Off.
Okay. All right, bye. Have a great day.